Fear and greed run through the wire. Candles climb and then expire. Our edges cut from the profile, sharp and clean by every buyer. He conquers the markets, he turns water into wine. His timing flows where chaos turns divine. Cut sharp enough to time the sign. Yeah, this man's no common trader. He commands the market's numbers. We call him Chef Bailey. The market bends beneath his flame. Fear and greed run through the wire. Candles climb and then expire. Our edges cut from the profile, sharp and clean by every buyer. Markets move, they twist and swing. Every tick can burn or bring. Ryan keeps calm, he trusts his thing. The charts tell him everything. But when T1 makes ding, 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 the futures spread their hidden wing. And he is ready for anything. Vic's still looking like a restless king.
Ready to stop guessing and start growing as a trader. Welcome to Vici Trading Solutions, a community built by real traders for serious learners. We don't just post trades, we teach the why behind every move. With a full education section and daily breakdowns, you'll start seeing the market like a pro. You won't be trading alone. Inside the Vici Discord, you're surrounded by committed traders, from futures pros to rising crypto specialists, all learning and winning together. Gain first access to our exclusive indicators, powerful tools used daily by hundreds across TradingView and beyond. These aren't gimmicks, they're built to sharpen your edge. Each morning, our founder posts a full trading plan for the S&P 500 or NASDAQ and calls out the levels he's watching live. No fluff, just clarity. Education, tools, community. Whether you trade futures, stock, or crypto, Vici gives you the foundation and firepower to grow. Join Vici, trade smarter, conquer the markets.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy Monday. They did it again. They squeezed balls big time. I hope everybody's protected their genitals today because it was quite a squeeze. And we came out of the poll today just absolutely ripping face. It was pretty unbelievable, actually. It caught me off guard. I won't lie. I obviously, like I said in the weekend review, like anything can happen here. They've been sitting in a balance for months. We just keep going back and forth and not accomplishing anything. So that's why it's important that we use our significant pivots for above below. And they came in very handy today, let me tell you. But, nothing surprises me these days. We started the day down about 95 points. When I was writing the trade plan this morning, we were down 90 points. And when I think we finished the day green, or actually it says, I think we finished the day green. I can't quite tell. My charting says about down 375, 3 points. So I don't know. I don't know if it's actually green or not. So with that being said, it was really close either way. And so just quite an incredible day. What's up, KR? It's good to see you. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to talk about the day because it was pretty wild. So I know everybody had a good time in my room, so we'll go ahead and talk about it right here. But first and foremost, as usual, guys, please follow me across all socials. Ryan Bailey Edge on YouTube, Substack, X, and TradingView. Getting a lot of people following on TradingView. People are loving that 80% edge indicator. We actually had that trade fire today. We pulled great points off of that, which we'll talk about today. It was a wonderful trade. It was one of the really clear trades that we had today, which, anytime something's 80%, you got to go for it. So certainly worth having that. It's free. If you guys are Substack subscribers, hit me up, shoot me a DM. I'll get you activated for that, another handful. I'm also working on getting that the charting thing done for you guys. I'm getting close. I've been working on this for a while, trying to actually get it so that you can just pulling a string, and it'll put all the levels over for you on the chart. It's not quite ready yet. I hope to get it done by tonight, and so I'll have that up for you guys as well. So excited to do that. Well, so now let's go ahead and get into the context here. We're just going to start off with the day and how it initially started. As usual, we always do the market context and kind of do a top-down look here. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. And obviously, as you guys know, we talked about this, over the weekend on Sunday. And again, this is really tough trading, guys. And I've pointed this out so many times. I was very, very emphasizing quite a bit and very adamant about just how difficult this is and how hard it is to pick a direction because of, being in this massive balance range. We really have not gone anywhere for quite some time. Good to see you, Matt, Bryce, and I'm just glad you guys are here. So this is going to be important for everybody as we, we're right back in the shit once again. So, I thought we had a nice little gap down. We were going to finally break out of this range, and negative. We're right back. So here we are. This is from Sunday. I actually did a nice little trade plan this morning. It was like a mini trade plan, but it was really just kind of and we're going to talk about that a little bit. It'll kind of poke its head in as we go. But, this is from the Sunday review because this is, I know for sure, is what everybody had. And so, again, we had the Middle East conflict and the 6-week balance, okay? So breaking down our big 68.57 monthly and the 69.03 momentum shift, all right? And obviously everybody knows we had the gap down from the war. We talked about how the sideways distribution. So we've been balancing back and forth for 6 weeks, if not more. It's actually been a couple months, but just the immediate area has been 6 weeks that we've been trapped inside value. And we're basically sitting in the same spot that we were at the beginning of January. So we haven't accomplished anything but drifting. And like I talked about previously in the weekend review, and I think I mentioned it today as well, when we have this sideways action, there's only one of two things that's happening, okay? They are essentially accumulating for a larger push higher, or they're distributing for a push lower. Now, I've talked about this before. Obviously we're talking about this right here, two things that's happening. I'm personally leaning to the downside. My structure, my process still tells me that we have a potential to come lower. Plus, the statistics say that after we've pushed up, this massive push since April, we're up 40% from the lows. We actually have a 70% chance of pulling back 18% this year because of midterms. So that in combination with being up so much, with this massive rally we've had with the Trump tariffs, et cetera, obviously I'm leaning to the downside. Does that mean we can't continue to go higher? Absolutely not. But right now my process is pointing down for the ES. But interestingly enough, it is still pointing up for the SPX. So it's, it's funny because I had these conflicting ideals. But again, we are seeing it essentially in the charts every day where we will, end up, squeezing higher and then they sell off and they basically traverse the weekly range. And as we know, today we opened way lower and today we squeezed all the way back up over 100 points. And, we continue to sit in the same range, which makes for, it's the volatility is wonderful, right? But it does make for difficult trading, especially when you're not breaking out of a range and you're just staying, in one spot. So we are still currently in negative gamma territory. The dealers actually moved their gamma level up about 25 points. We're well above 725 now for our negative gamma flip, which is really interesting because before it was around 7,000 and they've actually hedged it higher. So we have some interesting options activity as well. If you guys looked at the options graph that I put out this morning, you could see that they rolled everything down. So I think everybody was expecting a little bit lower this morning. And of course, the bulls ruined that for sure. So we've had, like I said, we've had some of the more difficult trading. So if you guys are struggling right now, please do not, be upset at yourself. This is just really tough stuff. Okay. But once again, we talked about how, it's important to know where the levels shift momentum wise. And that is what happens when you get contained in these massive ranges. You need to understand above or below certain areas where the momentum starts to favor the bears or the bulls. And we have been looking at the same levels over and over and over again. We've had 69.03 weekly, 68.57 monthly, and the 68.83 weekly. Those are our three levels that we continue to monitor, week in and week out as we sit in this massive range. Now, will that change? It might change at some point, but right now they're still pretty valid as we can tell. And we actually used the 57 level today. I came into the day on the short side, obviously, and my big pivot for above below was 57. And so as we know, when we popped above it, they got some Momo, and we actually pulled back to it a couple good times until they ended up coming higher. So let's go ahead and check that out now. So just to show you guys a bigger picture of what is going on here. This is our weekly profile. This is a ridiculous balance area here, you guys. Look at this. Unbelievable. So we're just sitting all in the balance here. And this is actually today. I took a picture just so that you guys can see what's going on. This is last week's point of control, or last week's profile. And this was the previous week's point of control at 85. Look where we closed. 83. I think right now we're at 88. I mean, we're literally just sitting right at it. We're at 84.50 right now. We're at 84. So we literally closed right at the previous week's point of control. We moved outside of this range. We swept the weekly low, and they came all the way back in, and we were right back in the shit. So we've accomplished nothing. Again, here we are with zero edge once again, sitting right here. We're in the trouble area. And, here's the reason why I say we have no edge, guys. Our edge is in the edges. Period. Point blank and period. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by this as soon as my pen fires up, because it makes perfect sense. And I'm only going to give you two examples. Okay. Very simple. We had the 69.65 short last Wednesday or Thursday that brought us all the way down. Right. Okay. And then today we had the sweep of the low down here around 68.10-ish area, let's call it. And actually it was much lower. We came into the 67.50 area last night, which we won't worry about that. But let's just say from this profile perspective. So we have the edge up here for the short to bring us down and the long down here to bring us up. So right now we're sitting right in value. I don't see any edge here. Okay. Now, will something pop its head up tomorrow? Very possible. It's very possible. But again, I preach this motto 1,000 times over. Our edges in the edges, and clearly just going by this massive profile here, it doesn't look that great for us. So we'll see what happens. We actually have some reasons to believe that we could continue to traverse a particular direction, and we'll go into it here real shortly. So let me pull up the next picture for you guys. And so here's the other thing that's really interesting. So you guys know that we talked about the NVIDIA earnings at 202.49 the other day. Ooh, where did we go? Hang on. There we go. And again, my pen decided to not work. So I guess we're done with that. So 202.50 right here. We played this monthly perfect. We called this on Thursday, which was the catalyst for our short. As you guys know, I didn't trade NVIDIA, but we were watching it all day, as we talked about in the post-market breakdown, to essentially watch for this pullback so that we could, get short right underneath our 69.65 level. What's interesting, and I kind of got a chuckle out of it when I took a look this morning, we actually, when in that video, if you go back and look, I said, you know what, they could actually pull all the way back to 177-ish area down in here and, find support and just continue to pop back up. And that's exactly what happened today, which made me laugh because I didn't expect it. I didn't actually see it until after the fact, but I just thought it was interesting as well. And as you can see, NVIDIA is doing the exact same thing that our market is doing. We have literally, this is a monthly level down here at 169, and this is another monthly at 202, and we're just contained inside of this. I mean, it's pretty obvious right now that, again, NVIDIA is essentially propping the market up at this point, and we are NVIDIA in a way, right? So this is 7 or 8% of the indices moves right now. And so this is a big deal. And right now, as you guys know, we faded hard when NVIDIA shorted, and when we popped hard when NVIDIA popped hard. And here we are right back in the middle, and it looks just like the ES, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I wanted to share that with you guys. What's up, Raj? It's good to see you show up. Pleasure. All right, so let's get into the next one. All right, so here we go. So here is when we talk about SPX. This was straight out of the trade plan as well on Sunday. You guys know I use this as a true guide. We talked about this again just moments before. And, so like I said, SPX is giving me a slightly different vibe on ES. Technically, it's still holding its structural support. And then here was the deal that I really wanted to focus on for you guys. We had the downside trap. Everything lower is tested except for the 68.03 4-hour leg. And again, at the time, I didn't love this level, right? It's okay. I'm allowed not to like it. But what the deal was is if it plays, we want to see a reclaim of 68.19, right here, which is the big weekly that we played previously right here, okay? And ultimately 68.83 for rotation higher. Well, that's where we're at now. Okay, so we got the 19, and then of course, for whatever reason, I didn't talk about 37, not a big deal, but we were essentially looking at these two levels. This is right from the trade plan as far as the picture is concerned, so you guys could have followed that for sure. And then here is what SPX looked like today, just to show you. So we played the 68.03, we reclaimed the 19, ultimately the 37. And then here we are, basically ended right here at the 68.81 area. That is the big level that, we were talking about, that this is essentially our big breakout spot, right? So what was nice to see today, and actually we were able to take advantage of some of this today, was obviously when we broke out, for me, what I was looking for was when we popped the 37 long. Sorry, my pen doesn't work. This is terrible. We actually got a reactions quite a few times underneath the 68, 65 weekly there. You can see these long candles here. These actually played for shorts. I took some of those shorts, and we'll talk about that here soon. And because again, I was predominantly short most of the day. I did take a few longs once I finally got my head out of my ass. But for the most part, I came into the day a little bit on the short side, and that's okay. We all made money. Actually, we rotated quite a few times, some good rotations. And so, I didn't catch the 100-point long, but everybody did their thing, and so it is what it is. So going into the next slide, what I wanted to show you guys, which is super interesting. So this is a level that I've talked about so many times. They actually, if you guys recall, back in February, we had a day that we went like 200 points straight up. And we ended up gapping down in the middle of the night. And we played this big 67.65, 67.50 area that I loved so much. Loved this spot. Absolutely wanted. I was so disappointed when they played in the middle of the night because, of course, I want the best buy. Of course, that's me, right? And then they rallied up super high. Well, for me, they'd never tested it in the cash session. And still to this day, they have not tested it in the cash session. But what did they do? They came down and they basically touched it last night. They missed it by maybe 5 points or something like that, which is whatever, fine. But I just couldn't believe it. We talked about this area in the trade plan. I talked about it, many, many, many times in the daily plans and the weekend reviews. And I said, man, this played beautifully in the overnight session previously. I believe it can play again in the cash session on first touch. Well, they'll say they really like playing it in Globex because they held it again. And this last time it produced 200 plus points, and this time it produced 100. Absolutely unbelievable level. And again, the whole idea with this was to watch it sweep and then get above, our levels here. And they did exactly that. So, the way they ended up opening up, essentially up here was pretty unbelievable at that point. And then they just kind of gassed it. And, I think we all know what happened from that point. So the other thing that I want to touch on, obviously, is VIX. So this is from my morning analysis this morning. So we've talked about this major VIX level at 2470 quite a few times. This was one of the upper end of our pivot ranges here that I really felt like was a ceiling for us. And the reason that I really liked it as much as I did was it was not only a daily, but it was a monthly as well. Just a massive high time frame level. You guys saw the reactions that we got from NVIDIA when we played that massive monthly. And so I obviously expected a little something off of this. And so when I woke up, we were already gapped up here and we were about right here when I started to write the trade plan this morning, somewhere in there for the guys. And again, one of the things that you want to keep in mind, and this happens all the time, okay? So, on Sunday, well, let me rephrase this. 9 times out of 10, and you'll notice this, that the VIX will gap up on the Monday cash session. There's always hedging that takes place on Friday that essentially they buy VIX as protection. And so we will generally gap up really a lot of times, no matter what happens in the overnight session or in the weekend, we generally gap up on a Monday and then they sell it off to close the gap. Okay. Well, kind of like right here, I even kind of let it be known to the room. It still has room to come down if they want to fill the gap, but given the bias, it's not guaranteed, right? I don't know what's going to do. I just know that this is pretty common occurrence on Sunday. So what we really wanted to keep a tab on is these 23.43 weekly. Keep an eye on this being above or below as your guide. Here was the 23.43 weekly. You can see the opening gap right here. And we flushed, which obviously helped us, with the upside bias and really helped me, not just stay dumb short and get run over. So that was, again, it works both ways, right? Like you can either help you get the correct bias or help you from not being stupid. And I was the guy today that was shorting most of the day, but this helped me not be stupid. So that was good. And just kind of show you how you can use this both ways. So Costas, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. All right. So now we're going to talk about the big resistance here at 57. So we had a 35 and a 57. I was going to get you guys a different chart, but I kind of ran out of time here. So anyways, long story short, we came all the way down and played the 50s. This was our other big weekly daily area at the 94.88 area. As you can see, they kind of played it, popped back up. So in the overnight session, they played our 57. Okay. This was the gap down, hit it, came down. They played the 57. Right. So then when we came back up this morning, we played the 35 and they dumped it for 30 points in everybody's face before the open. So we had the gap resistance levels, in my opinion, which was the 35 and the 57, which we talked about on Sunday. I didn't know these levels were going to come into play today, but the process is true once again. So it is what it is, right? So we had this tested daily at 35 and the massive monthly at 57, right? So we had this gap up, and basically these were the levels that were the fierce overhead resistance. And we've talked about many times that we need to get above 57 to basically put, to continue our upside momentum. That is the lower side pivot for me, which really is where everything shifts at. And he even said it right here. We must get back above these, being 35 and 57, to even attempt a rally. So look for these as short entries if price pops up and rejects. Well, I will say this. This 35 played great in the right before pre-market for 30 points. And actually 57 played really well too. I actually took this short as we approached it and got some decent points. I think I got 12 points on a one car and then stopped out for break even on my runner. And then here was the interesting part, right? So like I said, they needed to get above these levels. You can see we had a solid 1 hour close, well above the 57, well above our leg down here. And once they had that solid close, they pulled back, they retested the top of this support area, and then she was gone. And essentially, once I started seeing that, I'm like, okay, I'm done trying to short this thing. We're done here. We've essentially reclaimed 57 with confidence, being a 1 hour close, and they closed the 1 hour above this support that led to the low. So I had not one, but two reasons to stop shorting this thing. And at this point, this is where I started to look for longs really pretty adamantly, and it ended up paying in dividends, as you guys can imagine. So now we'll go into the next spot here again, but staying true to my process. We've talked about this quite a few times. The 68.83 for me was an untested weekly. Okay, so being as this my big barometer, I had to take the short. They actually missed me by about 2 ticks here, and I had to jump in a little late once they lost this previous pivot. As you can see, I had 2 contracts on the 76, brought one down for about 15 points, 16 points, and then even lower. So this was a great trade. I actually didn't get this lower target, but we were able to trail down. But unfortunately, 83 did not kill it. It was unfortunate. I was really hoping that it was going to put in a little bit more work, but we knew this level was important. This was our big pivot. So, momentum was heavy down on the to the downside as long as we were below that. So I had to take a poke, and it did pay, and it paid really nice. So that's what's up. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, let's talk about some longs, right? So check this out. So this is one of our signature trades here. We talk about this all the time. I even built the indicator for everybody who is a Substack subscriber. This is our 80% rule, right? So this is, everybody who's been a subscriber should know what this is by now. This is basically a market profile setup that works 80% of the time. So far, I haven't seen it lose yet. That doesn't mean it won't. I'm still waiting for the day. I keep taking it every time, and so far it's good. Actually, I had some guys in the room who were able to hit up the scoreboard today based on this trade alone. So you can see right here, I'm like, well, hello, at 11 a.m. We had an 80% rule confirmed, bullish direction, and the entry was 66. And I think the target was, let's see, what was the target? The target was, what was the target? Hang on, I'll have to look here. Well, it was 80, right? So I'm sorry, it was 80 because I was front running this by 1 tick, right? So I was able to I just took it blindly. At 65, I figured that we were going to continue to push up. I was 6 points away from the value area low, which was my invalidation. And so I got long and put my stop actually below 57, right? So my stop was, looks like it was 7 points or 8 points. And we let it go. I never took any heat off of it. And it went really up really well. And the nice part about it is we had been moving up and we were still in initial balance. And so for me, I was even, telling these guys, and I didn't capture that for whatever reason. It was a little late. Sorry. I was telling everybody in the room that we still had to wick the initial balance high. So, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. For those of you guys who are actual Edgeful subscribers, which was amazing today because it called the long right off the jump. But, for those of you who understand statistics, the initial balance gets broken like a very high percentage of the day. It's well over 80% that they either break the initial balance high or the initial balance low. It's almost a guarantee every day. It's very similar to the overnight high or low getting broke every day. Very, very rarely do they not do that. So knowing that we were trending up, knowing that we had the 80% rule activated, knowing that the target on the 80% rule was higher than the actual IB high, gave me the confidence to really hold and get up in there. And as you can see, this was a great trade, 68, 65, 50. And so this paid me about 14 points. And this was awesome ride up. So, whenever I do these type of trades, I always just put on one contract, because I'm not a big fan of buying things blindly, but that's what I had to do. Hang on one second, would you? Hang on. My dad's got the TV pumping here. Hang on. You know what? It'll be all right. All right. So let's see here. Sorry, guys. For those of you who don't know, I am in the process of taking care of my father. It is my last week here, and let me tell you something. Getting old sucks, and so I've been dealing with that for the past month, and it's been a challenge to say the least. As you can tell, I'm actually in their dining room right now with my whole office. So give me 1 second here, because that is about to drive me crazy. Hang on. My sincere apologies, guys. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. As you can see him in the back right now, he's he's 87 years old. He doesn't give a fuck about anything. So that's just how it works. All right, so let's go into the next one. All right, so we got the 80% rule. Here was the next one I thought was great. So as we started to push up, this was our 03. As you guys know, we've talked about this 03 weekly multiple times. We had a 1 hour level here at 0150. They just missed me. I was so salty. I wanted to catch this short, but on the pullback, we were able to call out the 68.75 long for the room. I'm telling everybody, hey, there's a potential long here at 75, which is a 4 hour top down. And at this point, I had taken this. I was in from 78 and, moved my stop up, locked in 10. So I was at least good for that. But this was actually the long at the end of the day that paid massive dividends. This thing went all the way up into our 69.08, which is the next cue that we're going to talk about right now. So check this out. So we got the 69.08, and I actually was going to pull up the 4 hour chart, but it's a mess. So you guys understand that 03 was the weekly, and we've talked about how 0875 is our previous weekly value area high. This is our big momentum shift area, guys. Above this, I truly believe that we can go higher. And when I say higher, I mean, I think that we can see the 40s and 50s or 40s and 60s. I think this is possible. So as long as we stay below, let's just call it 03, and it's truly 08-ish, but 03, let's say, which is the previous weekly value area high, as long as we stay below that, the momentum will stay down. However, if they break above this, for me, this is the line in the sand, and when we break above that, we are going to go higher. So it was interesting today that the 69.08 really kept a lid on things, or 09. I think we went to 10 or 11 was the high today. Let me take a look. It was 11, which happened to actually be the 20-day moving average. Now that I take a look at it, kind of interesting here. As you can see, the 20-day moving average played a few times, and here was the weekly value area high. So, the plan once again was on point. But like I've said, time and time again, this is very difficult trading. We are stuck in a massive range, and it just makes for tough direction picking, because we are not gaining nor losing levels. Actually, we have lost levels on ES. We have not on SPX. And right now we are contained in a massive range. And as long as we continue to do that, we can kind of flutter back and forth right now. I've been using VIX as a serious gauge to kind of help me understand the context of the day and the momentum shifts of the day. And I suggest you guys do the same. So as we continue to sit in this range, continue to use your significant pivots for above or below, and, that'll really guide you. And, because right now, technically, as long as we stay below 03, we have momentum to the downside, then we have 83 and 57. If we move above 03, 08, call it, we can push all the way up. So let me go ahead and actually just pull this chart up for you so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then we will leave it be here. Hang on. Let's see what we got. Let's see. And again, I kind of like that NVIDIA spot that we came off of. So, anything's possible. I certainly think this could potentially go higher if they really want to. So here we go. So here's my 4-hour chart. And, just to kind of pull this out a little bit, let me see if my pen will work on this. So once again, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this with you guys here since we've got this chart up, got a few minutes, and I want to show you exactly what I'm looking at and why I say what I say. Okay, so let me see if my pen's going to work on this chart. Oh, fuck you. No, it's not going to. All right, let me reset this thing real fast. We'll get it back up. All right, so here's the 65 level like we talked about. This was the big touchdown here. This sent us up 250 points, right? We ended up coming down. This is where we gapped down on Sunday, and we came down. We played this area. We had some massive put wall activity down here where dealers were absolutely hedging. So what I noticed this morning immediately when I woke up is we were here, but we started to reclaim this other weekly pivot area, and weekly daily pivot area that was huge. But it was pretty obvious that we had this massive resistance here. And options players were obviously thinking the same thing as well, as we had two serious call walls right here, right at our 57 level, which is another reason between this touch, and we know that 57 has been huge time and time again. This was essentially the spot here where we were looking for above below shift, right? So once we were back above this, we kind of had some leeway, and I was really thinking above 35 and 57 or below this we could stay contained, but on the push up they go. All right, so here we go again. So now we have 69.03, right? So this is our next big weekly, right? So if we push above here, we've already tested 28, but 28 is super important. Okay, as you can see, 28 is played 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And this was the 5th time last Wednesday that we ended up pushing to the highs. Okay. And then as you guys know, on Thursday, they back tested 28 for the fall down. Okay. So here we go again with 28. So if we push above 03, we got to deal with 28. And then we get into the major untested stuff here. So we got the untested weekly at 43, which we played before for the top down previously, and actually is what we used for the momentum shift on last Thursday. Then we also have an untested level at 51.50 and a daily and all that, a daily at 61.75 and a 4-hour 66. This is a massive untested area right here. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Okay. So look at this. This is like this right here is a miniature version of this right here. Okay. Now look what happened here. When they came up, they tested this high, lost. Look what happened. Okay. So this is the next big untested high lost area somewhere in here. We're going to get a reaction. Now, will it be the reaction that sends us way, way lower? I don't know. And, the only way to know is to find out. But we know above 65, they're going to continue to push higher, potentially into all-time highs. This is the level that we talked about last week that really kept a lid on things. And we've been looking at this level for a long time. And what's interesting is they've actually remanifested more levels here that are untested. And so this technically could play again. And the interesting part about this as well is if this plays and smacks, we don't go anywhere. We're literally still in this massive range. We really don't accomplish anything, okay? And it is possible to traverse all the way up here and come back down. And it is possible to go higher too. I mean, I'm just saying, we're not going anywhere. So that kind of gives you guys an idea of, how I'm looking at this. And right now, without really, creating any new legs or new levels, we really find ourselves in a difficult position. And it is hard for me to give you guys affirmatives, yes, this is what's going to happen, because I can't, right? So, as we continue to stay in this range, you just have to be very careful. Use VIX in combination with these important pivots. And of course, the untested levels, they play, don't get me wrong, but the most valuable ones are in the edges, right? Our edge is in the edges. When we get in the middle of this massive range, it becomes a little bit more difficult, and the probability of these levels working goes down significantly. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Got to take care of Pops. It's about that time. He's clearly hailing me right now. So again, I will see you guys same time, same channel. And I will also have the trade plan out to you at 8:30 in the morning. And tomorrow is another day, and we will conquer the markets. Cheers. Have a good one.